What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me for day number 2 of my 31 Days of Horror. This is where I'm watching and reviewing 31 horror movies for 31 days, all through the month of October till we get to Halloween. So, like I said, day number 2, still pretty early in the series, but enjoying it so far and looking forward to continuing on. Today's movie is a new film from this year, 2025. Came out real early in the year, I think it was January. I always try to put a new release in the mix for my 31 days just to try and keep it fresh and keep something that's pretty recently released. So today's movie is Lee Winnell's remake of Wolfman, as I said, from 2025, put out by Universal and Blumhouse. I'm pretty sure most people would be familiar with this movie, pretty mainstream and what have you. Just before I started recording, I was like, it's actually pretty cool that I'm covering Wolfman. Totally unintentional, but not too long ago, I feel like on the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a previous 31 days. I think it was just a random horror review. I covered the OG Wolfman, so it's cool that I'm doing the remake now. Like I said, I just put it together before I clicked record, but there's actually a remake that came out before this one. I'm sure everyone knows. I think it was from 2010 or something like that. So maybe I should review that one soon and finish the trifecta there. But either way, like I said, talking about Lee Winnell's Wolfman from 2025. This is actually my third time watching Wolfman, which is crazy. So it came out in January, we're in October now. I've seen this movie 3 times within a span of 10 months. It's actually equal with my most watched new movie from 2025. So I've seen this one 3 times, and the other movie that I've seen 3 times is Weapons. The reason why I've seen this movie so many times, I guess, is the first time I watched it is when it came out on DVD, watching it for the first time. And I decided to watch it again pretty soon after, just purely because I kind of felt like this could have been one of the most overhated horror movies from 2025 so far, at least. It just seemed to be when this movie came out, like everyone was dissing it. Like no one really enjoyed this movie, from what I heard when it came out. And the first time watching it, I'm like, I don't know, it wasn't that bad. There was definitely problems, and it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it just was sort of sitting with me, and I'm like, I want to rewatch it again. So watched it a second time, and now a third time coming back to it for this review. Like I said, directed by Lee Winnell, who has been doing these realistic takes on Universal monsters. I'm sure a lot of people knew that he did a remake of The Invisible Man a handful of years ago now, and that was a really successful and I think really solid remake. And like I said, he's doing like this realistic approach where he's making it as grounded as he can. You know, the original Invisible Man was like mad scientist doing potions and made himself invisible and went mad and whatever. But the remake had like modern commentary talking about domestic violence and abuse in relationships and things like that. And instead of like potions turning him invisible, it was like this suit because he was a tech guy. Like I just really liked the realistic modern approach for that. So it made me really excited for Wolfman. But either way, we'll quickly get into the plot before I keep fucking rambling. So the plot in this one, we've got a family of 3, husband, wife, daughter. The husband's dad has just been declared dead, and he's been living. The dad and his father have been separated for, I think it says like 30 years or so. Haven't seen him in ages, but now they need to take a trip to their house, to the father's house. Sorry, that passed away. To sort of just clear it out. He lives off in the middle of nowhere, just this big patch of land in the middle of woods, and like I said, they got to go over there, clear shit out and what have you. But while there, they get attacked by something in the woods. I'm sure you can put it together. It's a fucking wolfman. The dad ends up getting bitten. So while he's going through this transformation, they also still have to try and protect themselves from another threat outside. And that's pretty much the plot of it. Let's get into my thoughts of 2025's Wolfman. So like I said in my intro, I do feel like this is a movie that got like way too much hate through 2025. Though it's not perfect, and there are still some things that, even after watching it for a third time, stick out to me, and I'm like, that wasn't done the best. I think there are a lot of positives to take out of this movie that people overlook, and I want to talk about, so I'm going to start with the positives. First of all, really awesome body horror in this movie, and the effects are really fucking solid, which shouldn't be a surprise. Majority of werewolf movies and things like that, they have the transformation scenes, so that's just dealing with body horror in general. But again, with Lee Winnell trying to set this in like a grounded universe and make it as realistic as possible, the body horror is really upped in this movie, and it's a slow painful process for our character in this movie, and I really enjoyed the body horror in this, and I'm sure if you guys have watched my channel before, you guys know how much I love body horror. So yeah, I just really liked how it was done in here, and especially like with this infection approach, because that's what a lot of people were talking about with this, again, being a realistic approach. It wasn't going to be a straight up werewolf. Lee, when I was talking about how it's going to be more of like an infection that happens to kind of give you werewolf tendencies, and yeah, the body horror was really good. That's all I'm trying to say. I was a little bit cautious of the werewolf design coming into this movie for the first time, which again was another massive talking point. Before the movie came out, there was leaked images of what the Wolfman was going to look like, and a lot of people weren't happy with it. I didn't hate it, but again, I was a little bit cautious coming into this movie for the first time. But, you know, 3 times around again, third time watch, the design has grown on me. It's still not top tier, it's not perfect, but, you know, I don't think it's nearly as bad as what a lot of people were thinking it was going to be. So, werewolf design for me is fine. I really like the new ideas that they show for a werewolf transformation, because we always see the external of someone turning into a werewolf in these horror movies, but they get to show us like sort of what it's like to transform into that werewolf, putting us into the body of that character, if that makes sense. Like, for example, you get to see like wolf vision, so you get to see how his eyes change and how he can see in the dark, and everything's now got this blue hue around it. Like, I really liked that idea and what they were doing there. I thought that was really cool. You get to experience how his hearing is changing, so you know, smaller sounds are a lot more audible to him. They even do this cool thing where like voices are becoming distorted, like he can't hear English anymore. Like I said, the dad's been bitten, so he's transforming with his family around him, and it's this real slow, painful process, and they're talking to him, but he's hearing gibberish, and vice versa. He thinks he's responding in English, and they're just hearing him murmur and gargle, and it's, I don't know, I really like that. I thought it was really fucking cool, and I remember the first time watching this movie, I'm not even fucking joking, I'm like, I need to turn this up, I cannot hear what they're saying. And the whole time they were speaking gibberish, and I just thought I couldn't fucking hear him, and like, I felt a little bit fucking dumb, like when I realised, I'm like, oh, I'm a fucking idiot, but I really liked that. With it being a more grounded, realistic approach, and I'm gonna put quotes on that because, again, he's pretty much turning into a fucking werewolf. With it being a more grounded, scientific approach rather than supernatural, it's weird because I almost feel like he's turning too wolf-like. Again, if you're trying to make it this infection that's come into his body, that's fine, and you know, he can have these body transformations and stuff, but I do feel like it's a little bit of a stretch when he's doing these absolutely superhuman feats at some points. So I think he does become a little bit too wolf for that grounded, realistic approach, but I don't know, maybe that's a slight nitpick. There are some questionable things with, you know, the process of transforming as well that I have some small nitpicks with again. Like I said, his hearing improves, and there's this really cool scene. It is a cool scene. He hears like thudding on the sides of the house and whatever, and he thinks the wolf is getting inside or something's inside or whatever. But he follows it upstairs and he opens this closet, and it's a spider crawling across the wall, but it sounds so loud to him. And it just makes me think, well, if that spider was so loud, like, why is that like the only thing that like he could hear clear as day? Like, wouldn't like the tick of the clock on the wall be like ringing his head and everything? So there's like small things like that. There's a scene where, again, the process of him transforming is slow, but he has, where he's been bitten on his arm, it's starting to like look real nasty and whatever. And I guess an instinct in him kicks in, and he starts gnawing at his arm in front of his wife. But yet there's still some scenes where she lets him hang out with the daughter somewhat alone still, and like if that was me, I'd be like, no, you two are staying separated, like fucking opposite sides of the house. I don't know, there's some weird things like that. Overall, good werewolf in many aspects. I even like the local lore. The movie opens with the dad when he was a kid, with his dad, the one that had passed away, and back then there was a wolfman running around in the woods, and they like give it this really cool lore, and how like, you know, the locals are aware of this thing but they don't know what it is, and they're not sure if it's real. Like, I really liked that approach as well. But yeah, a lot of the positives here come from the actual werewolf elements of this story. So I guess moving on to the more so negatives now, I guess. First of all, three great lead performances. I have no issues with the performances and, the acting going on in this movie. You have Sean Abbott playing the father who turns into this Wolfman. He does a great job. Julia Garner playing the wife, Charlotte. Julia Garner's been popping up in so much horror recently. Obviously, Wolfman, Weapons, the Rosemary's Baby prequel, Apartment 7A. She was in this thriller called Royal Hotel from a couple years back. Like, she's been popping up in so much recently, even out of the genre. She was in the new Marvel movie, Fantastic Four. She does a great job in this movie. And then I didn't catch her name, but the child actor who plays the daughter, Ginger, she did a great job as well. Really good child performance. So I have no problem with the cast and the performances that they're giving here. Honestly, I feel like the biggest problem with this movie is the writing for their relationships and the dynamics and the developments and how it relates to, I guess, the deeper meanings and everything going on. And I guess we'll get into that. First of all, I think the character that suffers the most from poor writing is Charlotte, again played by Julia Gardner, the wife, or the mum, however you want to look at it. First of all, she opens this movie feeling really disconnected from her family members, which is fine. Okay, that's how the movie's set up. She's disconnected from her husband Blake, again played by Sean Abbott. She's work focused, distant. She doesn't even want to go on this trip to the house. Pretty much she says, I don't want to go there because I want to stay at work, and she openly says, I kind of struggle to spend time with my daughter. Like, we have this disconnect and she doesn't love me as much as she loves you and everything. And I get that. Okay, that's the way to start the movie. There's this disconnect, that's fine. But then as the movie goes, things start to go on with the story, and the disconnect and then, these emotional beats that come in, it just doesn't work. It collides. So there's this big emotional, heartfelt moment at about the halfway point where Charlotte spills her love for Blake, and she's like, I do really care about you and I want to make this work and I love you so much. Like, this family means so much to me, and it's meant to be real heartfelt and everything because he's in the middle of transforming and he's hurting and he's thinking he's gonna die. But it just kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere because, like I said, at the start of the movie, it's the total 180 of what's going on now. You're like, fuck, she like wants out of this family almost. Like, that's what it feels like to me. And I just feel like there's not really much progression to get to the point where she's now saying that she's fully into this and she loves her family and loves him so much. Like, it just felt so jarring. You're like, where the fuck was this development? Like, even when they're on the trip, it feels like she doesn't want to be there. Like, even now. So I feel like she's the character that suffers the most from sort of weaker writing. But then again, Blake, the dad played by Sean Abbott, his character again just has really bad development and writing. So his whole thing is like when he was living with his dad as a kid, and the reason why he hadn't seen him for so long, and they had this disconnect for like, I think it was 30 years, they say in the movie. His dad was really firm on him and really harsh and, would raise his voice and everything. And now Blake feels like he has that in him, so he worries about, taking things out on the daughter Ginger too much, or, he's worried about, it's going to sound corny, but it's what they're doing with this movie, letting the monster out. And that's sort of the symbolism here when he's turning into the werewolf. He doesn't want to become the monster. But the thing is, I don't feel like his character shows any signs of being too harsh or a little too full on, or I guess you could even use the word abusive. His character has none of that at all. If anything, he seems like really likable and reasonable. So when he's going on these moments where, the movie's almost saying to you, oh, here we go, the monster's about to be unleashed, and here comes like the thing that he's always been trying to hold back, it just doesn't feel earned, because it's like, this guy seems fucking reasonable and very likable, and like, honestly, like, Charlotte, the wife, seems to be his biggest problem, and even then he doesn't take much out on her. So there's this, metaphor that they're trying to do with Sean Abbott's character Blake having this inner monster trying not to be unleashed, and now in this movie he's been bit by the Wolfman and this monster's building up. So there's like this symbolism going on there, but it just doesn't work because he seems like a really fucking cool guy. Charlotte and Ginger, like I said, they have like probably the biggest disconnect in this movie. Like I said before, Charlotte goes on this trip with her husband and the daughter, she says like, oh, I have this disconnect with Ginger, you know, she likes you more than she likes me, and blah blah blah. The relationship in this movie almost feels like Charlotte's a new babysitter to her. It doesn't really feel like a mother and daughter, and even by the end of the movie, I'm not even sure if like the connection there, like it should be really really strong between those two. It just feels a little bit absent. So that is a negative, few negatives that's stuck out with me through all 3 times viewing this movie. So I kind of didn't want this review to be as long as it's going for, but I guess it sort of justifies why, you know, I've been wanting to watch this movie so much through this year, just because there's things that stick out to me that I really do enjoy, and I just feel like there is something really good here through this movie, but unfortunately it's bogged down by a lot of writing issues and everything. Like, this movie is not perfect, but I do think it is overhated. There's good effects, good body horror, cool setting. Even the story, when you simply break it down to a dad trying to protect his family from something on the outside while he is turning into something on the inside of the house, I think that's really fucking cool when you break the story down to its simplest form. Unfortunately, like I said, it is a problem with the writing and character development and how the characters' relationships are tied in and the symbolism and metaphors going on there. That is the weak part of this story. But the roots of it and the bones of this being a good movie are definitely there. There's even some good emotional beats, especially towards the end. Like, the end of this movie, I think, is honestly quite impactful. For the most part, there's still some issues there, but I'm trying not to spoil again because this is a pretty new movie as well. Like I said, I just feel like it trips up at the line when you're looking at the most important things, the writing, the character development, their relationships and things like that. I'm really tempted to give this movie a 7 out of 10, but I don't think it's quite there. As much as I think this movie's overhated, it's not perfect. I'm probably going to give it a 6.5 out of 10, which I still think is a lot higher than what I've heard a lot of people give it. Like, I've seen people give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. Everyone's saying, no, Lee Winnell, stop giving him Universal monster movies now. But it's definitely not as good as his approach on The Invisible Man. But there is something there. There is something there, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as what a lot of people make it out to be. But either way, thank you for joining me for day number 2 of my 31 Days of Horror. So obviously going to be continuing all through October. If you've seen this movie, let me know your thoughts of it in the comments below, and I'll see you tomorrow for day number 3.